Professional actors, you go in and just jump in and do it, best of your ability.
Let me say, can I say one thing? To me, Stanley, the great Stanley Kubrick, was an actor's enemy. And I can point to movies that he's done, the worst performance.
It's like he's spilling tea before anyone else can. Bold, hype, sarcastic, and street smart. Perfect for hip-hop gossip, Hollywood chaos, and scandal commentary. Professional actors, they don't ease into anything. They step in and go all out. No hesitation, no safety net, just raw performance from the jump. And honestly, that's exactly why some directors clash with them so hard, because not everybody respects that process. One insider speaking on Even recalled how actors would walk into roles fully locked in, ready to deliver at their peak, while certain directors would almost work against that energy instead of elevating it. And that tension, yeah, it doesn't just disappear, it builds over years. Now here's where things start getting messy, because according to Robert Duvall himself, Stanley, the great Stanley Kubrick, was an actor's enemy. And he didn't say that lightly. He straight up claimed there were films where the performances suffered because of how Kubrick handled actors. That's not a small accusation. That's a direct shot at one of the most respected directors in history. And just like that, the tone shifts completely, because this isn't just nostalgia anymore. This is buried truth coming to the surface. Then suddenly, the whole mood flips into something deeper, more personal. A narrator sets the stage, saying that every day another story from the golden age gets shared, moments that shaped an unforgettable era. But this time, it's not just memories, it's confessions. And if you're paying attention, you already know something big is about to drop. Because Robert Duvall, yeah, he finally spoke. After 6 decades in the game, the 94-year-old legend didn't just reflect, he exposed. He admitted there were 4 people in Hollywood he couldn't stand, not even for a second. And coming from a man known for being calm, disciplined, and drama-free, that hits different. This is the same Robert Duvall people always saw as the quiet giant, respected, composed, never caught up in industry chaos. But behind that calm image, yeah, there was history, real tension, real resentment that never fully faded. And when he finally said it out loud, it shook everything. "I've kept my mouth shut for decades," Robert Duvall reportedly said, "but at this age, what am I waiting for? It's time to tell the truth." And just like that, boom, the entire industry froze, because it's not just what was said, it's who said it. Robert Duvall was supposed to be the guy who takes secrets to the grave, not the one exposing them. That's when people realized these weren't small disagreements, these were deep-rooted issues that followed him for decades, stuff that affected performances, changed dynamics on set, and even shaped the outcome of legendary films. Think about that for a second. How many iconic scenes were influenced by tension behind the scenes? How many perfect collaborations were actually full of quiet conflict? Yeah, that illusion started cracking real quick. Now everyone's asking the same question. Who were the 4 names, and what really happened behind all those red carpets, smiles, and fake award show friendships? But before we even get to that list, you gotta understand what pushed Robert Duvall to finally speak, because this wasn't about bitterness, this was about truth catching up. Insiders say he'd been watching modern documentaries trying to rewrite history, painting everything as peaceful and respectful, when in reality, it wasn't like that at all. And that bothered him more than anything. One person close to him explained that Duvall had been seeing stories where tension got erased, jealousy got hidden, and real struggles got turned into feel-good narratives. And over time, that started eating at him. But the breaking point? Yeah, that came during a tribute to his own career. Picture this, Duvall sitting quietly in the audience, watching clips of his greatest moments, the crowd cheering, the narrator praising strong partnerships and lifelong respect. Meanwhile, he's sitting there remembering the reality behind those scenes. I sat there listening to all that revisionist nonsense about mutual respect and creative partnerships, while I remembered how one of those people used to deliberately step on my lines to ruin takes, and another tried to get me fired from what became one of my signature roles. Yeah, that was it. That moment right there pushed him over the edge. At 94, with nothing left to prove and nothing left to protect, Duvall made a decision. The truth matters more than the image. And he made it clear this wasn't just for himself, it was for the next generation. He wanted young actors to understand that behind the glamour, things can get ugly. That some of the greatest films ever made, they didn't come from harmony, they came from ego, jealousy, and straight-up chaos behind the scenes. And then, the first name dropped, Dustin Hoffman, the one Duvall called the credit thief who never stopped. And that's where things really start getting personal. Because back in the day, these two weren't enemies, they were broke actors sharing a tiny apartment in New York, chasing the same dream. Dustin and I were struggling actors together in New York. We were friends, or at least I thought we were. But over time, that friendship started looking real different. Duvall explained how he'd spend weeks working on a unique approach for auditions, practicing day and night in their apartment, only for Hoffman to show up to the same audition using that exact same approach. I'd work for weeks on a particular interpretation, then suddenly Dustin would get called for the same part, and he'd use my exact approach, sometimes word for word. And when Hoffman got the roles, he'd say Duvall inspired him, but Duvall wasn't buying that at all. That's a fancy word for theft. And just like that, what looked like friendship turned into something way more calculated.
But that's where things took a real ugly turn, because the truth didn't just stop at borrowing ideas, it went way deeper than that. Later on, when Robert Duvall came across an interview where Dustin Hoffman was talking about how he created that iconic voice for Midnight Cowboy, something didn't sit right at all. According to Duvall, Hoffman claimed he built that character by studying homeless people in New York for months, like it was all his own grind, his own discovery. And Duvall, yeah, he immediately caught that. Because in his mind, that whole story was missing one major detail: him. Never once did he mention our conversations, Duvall said, clearly still bothered by it. And you can hear it in his tone. This wasn't just about credit. This was about being erased completely after putting in real time helping someone level up. Now, the real breaking point, that came in 1971, and this is where things get straight up cold. Both Duvall and Hoffman were up for the lead role in The French Connection. That role ended up going to Gene Hackman, but what happened behind the scenes? Yeah, that's what stayed with Duvall all these years. That was when I stopped taking his calls, Duvall admitted. And that line right there, that's not just frustration, that's someone completely done. I realize some people never stop taking from others, they just get better at pretending it's collaboration. That's heavy, because now it's not just about competition anymore, it's about how far someone is willing to go to win. And then insiders started speaking up too, backing Duvall's version of events. Sources claim that during the casting process, Hoffman didn't just outperform, he allegedly tried to take Duvall out of the race completely. He reportedly told director William Friedkin that Duvall was difficult, hard to work with, and uncooperative, bringing up old theater stories to sell that image. And if that's true, yeah, that's not strategy anymore, that's sabotage. Duvall didn't hesitate to call it what it was either. That crossed a line, he said firmly. From competition straight into personal attacks. Years later, Duvall finally confronted Hoffman about it. He denied it, Duvall recalled, but then he hit him with something stronger. But I heard it directly from Friedkin himself. And just like that, the denial didn't mean much anymore. Now here's the crazy part. Despite all of that, Duvall never exposed him back then, not a word to the public. He stayed professional, showed up to events, shared space with Hoffman, even complimented his work when asked. That's how clean he kept it on the outside. Meanwhile, behind that calm image, yeah, there was quiet tension just sitting there for decades. Nobody in Hollywood saw it coming. Two legends, same generation, same circles, and nobody realized there was real friction underneath all that respect. But then, things escalated even further, because as shocking as the Hoffman situation was, the next name, that one hit way harder. Robert Duvall didn't just name another actor, he named a myth, Marlon Brando. And the way he described him, yeah, no filter at all. The most destructive ego I ever encountered. That's not just criticism, that's a full breakdown of someone's character. Duvall didn't deny Brando's talent, though. He made that clear. He was a genius, no question, he admitted. But then he followed it up with the real truth. But he was also the most destructive ego I ever encountered in this business. And just like that, the image of Brando being this untouchable legend, yeah, it started cracking. Duvall went even deeper, explaining something most people don't talk about. In Hollywood, great performances don't always come from great relationships. Sometimes they survive in spite of terrible ones. That line right there, that's the reality behind the scenes. Because according to Duvall, working with Brando wasn't just difficult, it was chaos. On the set of The Chase back in 1966, things got out of control fast. That cast, yeah, it was stacked. Jane Fonda, Robert Redford, Brando, Duvall, pure Hollywood power. But behind the scenes, it was a whole different story. Duvall revealed that Brando had this habit, and it wasn't accidental. He would deliberately change his performance every single take, not to improve it, but to mess with the entire production. If he didn't like the direction, he'd throw everything off. Duvall explained that Brando would intentionally disrupt scenes, making it impossible to edit properly, ruining the flow for everyone else. Brando called it protecting the performance. Duvall called it what it really was, sabotage. And then came the moment where everything exploded. During one of Duvall's biggest monologues, something started happening, subtle but calculated. Crew members later confirmed it too. Brando would stand off camera and make faint noises, just loud enough for the microphones to pick them up. Take after take kept getting ruined, and by the fifth one, yeah, Duvall had enough. After the fifth ruined take, I confronted him, and what Brando did next, that's what really stuck with him. Brando just smiled, that smug, calm smile, and said, "Maybe you should be stronger in your choices." That's cold, because now he's flipping the situation, making it seem like Duvall was the problem. Duvall paused when recalling that moment. You can tell it stayed with him. That was Marlon, he said. He'd sabotage you, then frame it as your weakness. That's not just ego, that's manipulation. And the crazy part? For years, Duvall still praised Brando publicly, called him an inspiration, spoke highly of his talent, all while holding on to that experience quietly. That's how deep this ran. They even ended up in the same cinematic world again with The Godfather, but never shared a single scene. Back then, it looked like coincidence. Now, it feels very intentional. I learned more from watching Marlon than from anyone else, Duvall admitted, but then he made it clear what that really meant. I learned how not to treat colleagues. I learned that genius doesn't excuse cruelty.
That mix right there, admiration on one side, straight up disgust on the other, yeah, that's exactly why Robert Duvall stayed quiet all those years, respecting the talent, but low-key carrying disappointment about the ego behind it all. And honestly, that kind of internal conflict doesn't just disappear, it sits with you. But just when Hollywood was still trying to process that Marlon Brando situation, Duvall wasn't done, not even close, because then he dropped another name, and this one, yeah, this one hit way closer to home. The third name on his list, James Caan, and the way he described him, cold, competitive to the point of malice. Now that right there shocked people, because if you know their work in The Godfather, you'd think these two had real brotherhood. Their chemistry as Sonny Corleone and Tom Hagen, yeah, that felt real, natural, almost too perfect. But behind the scenes, whole different energy. Jimmy and I created one of the most believable brother relationships in film history, Duvall said, and we did it while barely speaking to each other off camera. That's crazy, because now you realize what looked like connection was actually tension being turned into performance. And according to Duvall, that tension started early, like from the very first rehearsals. Both of them came in hungry, both trying to stand out in a cast already filled with heavy hitters, but their approaches completely different. Duvall was calculated, precise, moving like a strategist. Caan? Nah, he was explosive, loud energy, unpredictable, always trying to dominate the moment. Jimmy was competitive to the point of malice, Duvall said, and he didn't stop there. He deliberately tried to upstage everyone, especially me. That's personal. Duvall explained how every time he had an important line, Caan would suddenly start doing something extra, tapping fingers, messing with props, making big facial reactions, anything to steal focus and pull attention away. That's not acting anymore, that's a power move. And then everything boiled over during that iconic family meeting scene, the one where the Corleones are debating going to war.
What people saw on screen? Intense brotherly tension. What was actually happening? Real rivalry playing out in real time. Hollywood had no idea. Then came the moment that really changed everything for Duvall. He was having a quiet, focused conversation with director Francis Coppola, breaking down Tom Hagen's mindset, really getting into the character. And then out of nowhere, Khan walks in, smirking, throws a slick little comment about overthinking glorified secretary roles, basically downplaying Duvall's character right in front of him. Yeah, that was the line. That was the moment I decided we would never be friends, Duvall said, and from that point on, everything shifted. Duvall made a conscious decision. Every scene, Tom Hagen would watch Sonny closely, not just act it, live it. And that's why their dynamic felt so real, because it was real. A calm strategist dealing with a hothead he doesn't fully trust. That tension, it translated perfectly on screen. But here's what really shocked people. They hid all of it. For decades, nobody knew. They showed up smiling at reunions, laughing in interviews, standing side by side on red carpets like everything was solid. We weren't going to let personal issues damage something that important, Duvall explained. So we smiled, told the right stories, and played our parts. That's next-level professionalism. And honestly, that kind of acting, the off-camera acting, that doesn't win awards, but it earns respect in a different way. That's why this stayed hidden for so long. Years of fake harmony, perfectly controlled public appearances, all covering up real tension underneath. But then Duvall went even further, because while the issues with Brando and Khan were mostly about ego and competition, the fourth name? Yeah, this one got personal. And when he said it, Hollywood really froze. The final name? Robert Redford. And the label he gave him? Brutal. The fraud behind the golden image. Now that right there, that shook everything, because Redford wasn't just another actor. He was the golden boy, the symbol of class, intelligence, integrity, the guy everyone respected. But according to Duvall, that image wasn't the full story. Redford built the perfect public persona, the serious craftsman, the idealist, the man of principle. But the reality I experienced was something else entirely. That's a direct hit. Behind that calm smile and polished presence, Duvall claimed there was a completely different side. He described Redford as someone cold, calculated, someone who treated crew members like background objects and saw other actors as obstacles instead of collaborators. And this all started during The Natural back in 1984. Duvall was playing Max Mercy while Redford was playing Roy Hobbs, and what should have been a smooth collaboration, yeah, it turned messy real fast. Duvall started noticing patterns, behaviors that didn't match the public image at all. Entire crews left waiting for hours, not because Redford was deep in character, but because he was handling business calls while everyone else stood around doing nothing. He'd keep everyone on standby, Duvall said, not because he was deep in character. He'd be on the phone handling deals while the whole crew just stood there waiting. And then he said it straight. That's not artistry, that's arrogance. And as filming went on, the tension got heavier and heavier. You could feel it in the scenes. That sharp energy between them, yeah, audiences loved it, but they had no idea how real it actually was. Because behind that performance, there was real frustration building. And then came the final accusation. Duvall claimed that Redford didn't just create tension, he tried to control the narrative. He repeatedly pressured director Barry Levinson to trim my role, Duvall alleged. And just like that, what looked like a clean, respectful partnership, yeah, it turned into something way more calculated behind the scenes.
And that's where everything really gets exposed, because now it's not even subtle anymore. According to Duvall, Robert Redford wasn't just protecting his image, he was actively trying to control the entire narrative. He argued that the scenes where Max Mercy challenged Roy Hobbs weren't necessary, but Duvall saw straight through that move. Because to him, that wasn't about storytelling at all, it was about dominance. It became clear he saw any strong presence opposite him as a threat, Duvall explained. And that right there changes everything. Because now you're not looking at collaboration, you're looking at someone trying to own every single frame. And the irony? Yeah, it was almost too perfect.
On screen, Redford was playing this legendary baseball hero being questioned by a journalist, but behind the scenes, he was literally trying to silence that same voice. That's wild. And for Duvall, that's what really got under his skin, not just the ego, but the hypocrisy behind it. The gap between who he pretends to be and how he really acts is massive, Duvall said. And then he went even harder. The man preaches collaboration, but behind the scenes, he's calculating every move to protect himself. That's not just criticism, that's exposing a whole persona. Duvall even pointed out how Redford would stand on stage at Sundance talking about artistic purity like he's the face of integrity, but then show up on set demanding final cut privileges and control over casting decisions. That contradiction? Yeah, that's what made it hit even harder. The saint in public, the controller behind the scenes. And then came the moment that locked everything in forever. During post-production of The Natural, Duvall decided to confront him directly. No more silence, no more playing along. And what happened next? That's the part that stayed with him all these years. Crew members were there. They saw it. Redford looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "You're a character actor, Bob. I'm a movie star. We're not playing by the same rules." That's disrespect on a whole different level. Duvall said that line hit him like a punch to the chest, because in that moment, everything became clear. The fraud behind the golden image. That's how he described him after that. And from that point on, he never saw him the same way. And honestly, that might have been the most shocking part of everything, because this wasn't just another feud. This cracked the entire illusion Hollywood had built for decades. The idea of these perfect legends, these untouchable icons, yeah, that image started breaking apart real fast. People began to realize they're human too, flawed, competitive, sometimes even calculated behind the scenes. That golden glow Redford carried for years, it started flickering. And once those cracks show, you can't unsee him. After that interview dropped, Hollywood went into straight chaos mode. Shock, denial, quiet confirmations. Whispers started turning into conversations real quick. Representatives for Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford released statements, respectful, polished, very controlled, saying they were surprised but still respected Duvall's legacy. But let's be real, it felt a little too clean. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, people started backing Duvall up. Crew members from The Natural confirmed Redford's controlling behavior. A former assistant director from The Godfather admitted there was real tension between Duvall and James Caan on set. Even Francis Coppola didn't deny it, he just kept it classy. The chemistry you see on screen sometimes comes from very complicated personal dynamics behind the camera, he said. That's Hollywood talk for, yeah, it's true. And it didn't stop there. Sources close to Duvall revealed that several big-name actors reached out to him privately, thanking him. Finally, someone said what so many have felt but never dared to say out loud, one actor reportedly said. That's powerful, because now it's not just one man speaking, it's a whole industry that's been holding things in. And Duvall himself? He doesn't seem angry, he seems free. After decades of staying quiet, he's not attacking, he's just correcting the record. My goal was never to hurt anyone's legacy, but to correct a version of history that's been polished into fiction, he explained. And that line right there, that sums everything up. He made it clear, these weren't small issues or random arguments. These were patterns, long-term behavior that shaped careers, affected projects, and changed lives behind the scenes. These truths deserve to be part of the record, he said firmly. Not just the clean version, the real version. And now, one question is hanging over everything. Does Robert Duvall have more to say? Because his final words, they weren't casual at all. Those four stood out, but they weren't alone. And just like that, he walked away, leaving Hollywood to sit there and face itself. Maybe after all these years, it really is time for the myths to fall and the truth to take center stage. And honestly, what do you think of all this? Do you believe Duvall was right to finally speak up, or do you think something should have stayed buried? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this opened your eyes even a little bit. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this. Because trust me, this industry has way more secrets than people think.